4Ds Metrics provides a rapid and efficient platform for startups and companies to develop desirable and feasible products for the viable business model. With the 4Ds Metrics approach and tools, defined to understand the customer's needs and find possible solutions while considering the entire solution space. Design a detailed design of the proposed solution and shape the products or services' desirability and feasibility. Develop a product or service that serves the identified needs, ensuring the viability and sustainability of the product and its impact on the environment. Deploy a minimum viable product, MVP, for the customer validation, traction building, and go-to-market strategy testing.
We are doing the second part of design. Like I said, we're going to be talking a bit about prototype design and intellectual property. So I'm zooming in my screen so that you can see better. So before you produce in mass whatever you want to bring to the market as an entrepreneur, you cannot just use resources and time before you actually know that whatever you're producing is the right product for the customers and is also the right technology, in this case, be it a service or even a product. So a prototype is a model of an idea meant to visualize or communicate the idea before production. So if you're trying to produce a certain type of product which is physical, you're going to create a prototype before you can produce in masses and distribute to people. There are several importance of producing a prototype before you produce the bigger mass of the product, and we're going to get into that. Let's first talk about the types of prototypes. A physical prototype is mostly for people who are going to be producing physical products. So if you're going to be producing, let's say, a computer, you could create a small physical prototype to show people how that computer will be looking like. It could be one computer that you produce before you produce thousands of them, so that somebody can look at how it works, what's its function. I'm assuming, which is true, for the first person that created a phone, let's say a smartphone, they created one smartphone and they took it to the customer for feedback to see that this is a thing you can call without having the buttons. This is where you slide your finger you don't have to use a lot of efforts, or this is how it looks like, this is the size, so that they can see the actual product that you want to produce, but in an unfinished kind of version, so that when you get the feedback, you're sure that you're going to produce this and it serves the customer and they desire product and it's actually going to be functional for them. So a focus prototype is a type of prototype that you create just to get feedback from the customers on a particular aspect. For example, you could create a focused prototype just to get feedback from the customers on the design. You just want them to like or hate the design and give you feedback and say, we think you can add this size, we think you can add this weight, we think you can add this colors. So you are doing it specifically looking for focused or specific answers. So you could also create a focused prototype just to ask people about the functionality. You're just looking at the functionality. Maybe it has an ugly shape, it has an ugly color, but you want them to give you an idea of how they feel about the functionality. So the analytical ones, mathematical models, where people can check the functionality of let's say it's a formula that you want to create online, or an algorithm that you're trying to create online that somebody else can test the model and say this works. This could mostly work for things that are going to be online. Lastly, comprehensive prototype. These are done towards the end. So you are trying to test. You've collected a lot of the feedback from the customers, the focus questions you were answering, the design. Now you're doing, it has more features than the previous ones we've just talked about, so that it's final and the customers will say, I think I can buy this product, and then you produce in masses. So moving forward, the users of prototypes, they're meant to show proof of the concept and it's also easier for you to communicate. When somebody can see what you're speaking in words, it's easier for them. If it's an app you're building, if they have um, a, an easier model for them to interact with the interface, to interact with a few of the menu or options, then they can understand. So you're proving your concept. They also helps the customers to try and visualize the idea you're talking about. Second, it gives you a space for you to learn and adapt, which is learning, integration, and working. So when a customer gives you a feedback, you know what function works, you know which function works better, you know which one doesn't work, you know what they like about the design or not, you know what is the technology around what you're doing, so that the customers can actually give you feedback before you produce something and they hate it and you've already produced the mass product. It gives you a visual. So the prototype gives you a visual of the dimensions and also the cost that you're going to incur when you're producing your mass products. For example, when you use 3D printers to produce, let's say, if you're producing you're going to create a certain type of boot, and with the design, and this is a boot that has a zipper, then you create one with a 3D, it gives you an idea of what it will look like. If you can test it on the customers, then very well. So in this case, you've reduced the cost, but you have gotten a visual aid of what you're producing. And pre-production, you produce one thing. If it goes at the end of the production channel and it's what you have given as a command to the machine, then you can produce. Before you produce the mass, and then maybe there's an error somewhere in the production, not in the design in this case. That's what we call pre-production use of a prototype. Now, there are some strategies of prototyping that different people use. So rapid prototypes, like I gave you an example, these days it's easier for you to create prototypes without having to spend a lot of money. You just put the design in your computer, you go to a 3D printer, it produces the type of product that you are creating. You can also go online, visual and digital. If you're creating an online service or an application or a platform, then you create a simulation or interface, something that a customer can actually interact with and give you the feedback of the real deal. And traditional prototyping, this is where you use low-cost materials like cardboard, like sticky notes. People can design. In this case, you're just drawing what you have in mind as a product, and a customer can look at it and say, I don't like how it's straight down here, or maybe change the colors, what you've put in here. So basically, what strategy you're using here depends on the kind of resources that you have, but the better technology, the better feedback you can get from the customers. Sometimes also in the brainstorming, you can start with the traditional prototyping. And let's say you're brainstorming with your team and say, we're going to be producing a phone. So every one of you design, draw the phone as you have it in mind. And then they will draw it on the paper. Some of them will do tall ones, others will do wide ones. They will do an interface that has a button down there. Another one will still draw something that has different buttons. So after you've had a common understanding of what the prototype looks like, and maybe you try doing a simulation online so that people can test the functionality. And then lastly, you do a rapid prototyping with the 3D. In this case, a customer can interact with the product tangibly before you can go into the mass production. Now, there's a very important aspect for you guys to consider as entrepreneurs and facilitators who will be helping other entrepreneurs. It's very important now and in the past, and especially in the future, for us to preserve our environment. So it's very important for us to design for the environment. I remember us using the model pastel to test our ideas, our solutions, to see if it's environmentally friendly. In this case, in design as well, the environmental friendly aspect comes back in, because it's very important to look at the overall health of the people that are going to be producing, the people that are going to be using, and the safety of these people and the environment as well. So we do not want you to think about a product that could be solving a problem but causing another. So basically you're producing, let's say, a phone that people can use to answer calls, pick calls, chat with people, but in the production you're emitting a lot of green gases that are destroying the environment. that is not the idea that we want you to work with. It's very important that we look up around things to do with pollution. It's very important that we all participate in stopping the global warming and waste production, eliminate as much waste as possible. It's very, especially for those that are creating services, products, think about a product that will be easy to recycle, because definitely a product can be used for a certain period of time, not forever. So if it's used, even if it's used for 20 years, think about in 20 years, can this product be degradable? Can it rot so that it goes into the ground and that's it? Or can it be recycled? Can it be produced into something else? Also think about using clean energy. Even when you're providing a service, let's say you're creating a restaurant or a coffee shop, think about the kind of things that you're going to be using in your restaurant that reduce the amount of energy and pollution that goes out there, and minimize or eliminate waste as possible. So this goes to say use biodegradable materials, use raw materials that do not produce a lot of waste, and use materials that are easy to separate, disassemble when in terms of when you're going to do recycling. So there's some materials that you can mix, and in time of recycling, they can't be used as a product and they also can't be separated. That's very bad for the environment, because that increases the kind of waste that we dump in our waste site. So it's very important to have the environment in mind with the product you're producing, or even a service if you are going to be using certain products. Lastly, the product architecture. I want to say there are different kind of product architecture. There are what we call modular products and integral. Modular products, these are products that are made of components that are interchangeable, that can easily or in one way or the other be disassembled. For example, let me use an example of a camera. The person that created the digital camera created different components. There's the camera itself, there's the lens that you can add or take off the camera, there's a battery that you add in, there's a rope or the other cord that you use to carry the camera. So there are different parts that are all combined and make the camera. Another example could be, let's say, a remote. It's easier for you to take off the batteries out there. Sometimes you can replace the buttons in one way or the other. So modular products have interchangeable components, and these can be replaced, this can be reused somewhere else, this can be customized. So these are products that still have all combined, give a certain function, but they have different components. Integral products, on the other hand, you can immediately understand that it's the opposite. These are products that are physically combined, I would call it, physically one thing. So if you can look at the evolving of the smartphone, initially we had phones that have buttons and a screen and a door and a battery. As we go on, more and more smartphones are coming as a whole unit where it's closed. We know there's a battery in there, but as you can just replace or customize anyhow. So integral products are in most cases inseparable. So think about the architecture of your product and why is it important, and what value does your architecture give to the customers. Maybe it's easier for them to replace batteries every once in a while, or it's easier for them to change one thing to another. Like a camera, like I gave an example, you can change a lens from a bigger lens or a powerful lens versus a small one, depending on what you want to do. Or let's say there are cameras that have lenses that you can use inside water, right? So you go inside water and you change one lens versus the other so that you can take good pictures inside the water, if that's a feature you want to give your customers. So think about your product, what the architecture that goes into developing this product, and why is it important for you to have that architecture type of product for your customers, or even it eases the production. So I would say the change, the critical in the decision on what you are creating as a product comes at the system level design. So where you're thinking of the decomposition of a product into subsystems, or assignment of a design for different responsibilities. So for you to think of whether you're going to make it modular or integral, you have to go through different levels of decisions so that you can say, I'm going to do this type of architecture for the product because it has this responsibility and because it eases the functionality of this product in different one way or the other. So that brings us to the end of a prototype, and I'll go through the intellectual property very fast. A patent is used to protect inventive ideas, the processes that are very new. So I would say the first person that created the phone had to get a patent for it, so that every other person that is going to create a phone, a different kind of phone or different types of phone, knows that this is not their own idea. They can produce in mass. For example, different factories will say we're going to be manufacturing iPhones, but the idea of the first iPhone is of the owner. So the person gets a patent for their inventive idea. A trademark on the side is for phrases, words, symbols, smells, color schemes, design. For example, if you've created the whole new font and say, I'm going to create this font to help artists to do something, then you can put a trademark on that. Or a sound. An example that is given in this statement is the lion roar that you usually see on movies. So the person that created that animation trademarked it. It could be used in different movies as an introduction, but the trademark goes on mostly phrases, words, symbols, sounds, spells, things that are mostly intangible. Now, copyrights are not used for products or services, but the manner through which these ideas are expressed. Like an example given here is work of art, music, architecture, movie scripts, production. So the way somebody has shown an idea, the way somebody has expressed themselves. I could be speaking words that I read somewhere, and I create music, and I copyright that lyrics and the instrumental, I would call it. So somebody else can hear and say that is Miriam's song. Lastly, a trade secret. This is mostly, as I would call it, as it says, it's a secret for the company, right? So they could have a formula on how they create, let's say, an example could be the ingredient that we put in our burgers, right? So we have a way we arrange things and then we produce a burger. Every person can cook meat and make a burger, but we have a secret that we have as a company that gives us an advantage over other people. That brings us to the end of the IP, and remember to use as many technology offers that are available for you in creating prototypes, showing the idea that you have. And the more you understand these tools, the easier it can be for you to help other startups.